Welcome to another Watchlist, my weekly rundown of what I've been watching and what I've been up to. 5 films this week, and we'll start with an Ingmar Bergman film. Now, I don't think I've talked about Bergman before. It's possible I may have discussed Wild Strawberries, but not in my memory. And we're going to talk about Smiles of a Summer Night. Now, Smiles of a Summer Night is a bit different from the other Bergman films that I've seen, because the other Bergman films that I've seen are all a bit heavy. They're all very theme heavy. They're all very, ideas heavy. And they deal with a lot of very serious sides of human nature and human feeling. But Smiles of Summer Night is maybe something a bit more palatable or a bit more recognisable to you because, well, it's about love triangles. Now, bear with me on this one. We've got an older man, very successful lawyer, who's married to a younger girl. They don't seem to have formed very much of a relationship yet so far, even though they're married. They have this attraction to each other, one through status, one through beauty. Then you have that older man who's a lawyer has a relationship or a former relationship with an actress where there does still seem to be emotions left over, but they confide in each other, they're good friends. The actress has a relationship with a baron/general who's married. So it's extramarital as well. These all seem to be very open secrets. You then have a housekeeper that's very attracted to the older man, the older lawyer man as well. There's a son of the older lawyer man who doesn't seem to be fit in anywhere, just seems to be lost and a bit of a useless human being. And so you have this lighthearted tale, anyway. This lighthearted tale that explores all these relationships and you see how they resolve, how they end up, and what kind of drama they go through. Now, it's an enjoyable tale. It's a light-hearted tale in many ways. And it's something that, again, I don't think I was necessarily expecting from watching a Bergman film. But it's kind of jovial and jaunts along, and there's plenty of japes, if you want. I've lots of J's in that sentence. But a very enjoyable watch throughout. I won't say I hardly laughed at any of it, but it's amusing throughout, and I do think that kind of love triangle thing is helped by the language. The Swedish language has a way of sounding quite jovial and light-hearted, even if the characters on screen aren't. So in some of the other Bergman movies, which are a bit more stoic or staid, the language I don't think necessarily suits it, but here it really does, and you get the very playful nature of a film, and one that I thoroughly enjoyed. And you probably realise this already, but it also happens to be the first film in the sequence of the big massive Bergman box. So yes, I have started at the start of the Bergman box. I have a couple of films in, and I'm making my way through it, although I've no real time scale for it or otherwise. And while Bergman, I don't think, certainly in the films that I've seen, doesn't strike me as a magician with a camera, it's in his writing that it really seems to take off, and the writing in here is excellent, as is the acting. So that is Smiles of a Summer Night. Second up is a French film made by an Austrian, Michael Haneke's Amour. And it did strike me when I was doing the French cinema season recently, and somebody called me out on the fact that my next one up is by a Belgian filmmaker, but it's a French film. And I often think these things are to do with finance and production rather than, the country of origin of the director. But we have this French film called Amour. And it tells the story of an elderly couple who have obviously got a very, very close bond of growing old together and living their life together. So while there are other people from the outside, family, people that they've influenced over their lives as piano and music teachers that come to visit them, it's very much the two of them that create this tight knot together. And unfortunately, one of the characters falls quite poorly and ill and starts to deteriorate. And really the film explores how the burden passes from the care person to the person that loves them. And the kind of toll that takes on both parties as one feels himself deteriorating and the impact they're having on the other person that's caring for them. And then also from the person that wants to care for them, wants to care and provide the best care that they can for the person they love, but the weight and the toll that takes. Amour is, maybe unsurprisingly, an incredibly emotional film, but a kind of amazingly beautiful film as well. You know, while there are definite moments of sadness, there are definite moments where you'll go, oh, I don't know if I can watch much more of this, because it can be quite difficult seeing love emoted so clearly on screen. It's very hard if you're in a similar position where you look at the person beside you and feel that the people on screen are showing for each other. Do not empathise and put yourself in that position and wonder what you would do. But an utterly gorgeous movie, and one that's, well, let's be honest, it's another one of those artificial lie, couple of pounds kind of releases, but just tremendous film, and one that should be watched for anybody with a heart. Third up is a John Frankenheimer film that I think it's fair to say when it was announced recently, it received some derision. Prophecy is the film, and it's one of those eco thrillers or eco horrors. It tells a story of, well, a man that's been called an investigator or mediate between industry and people that live natively in a woodland. We have a logging company that moved in, trying to go about its business, trying to take over more of the forest, and we have Native American people that are living in the area that want it unkempt and unspoilt. To help mediate between this, a man is brought in to write a report on the land and the impact of the logging company on the environment, and he brings his wife with him, played by Talia Shire. Now, there are other things going on there that are explored through the movie, but we have this, what is essentially this eco story about whether the production or capitalism is having a negative impact on the land. And this is all further complicated by the fact that one of the Native American tales or folklore is that the land is under protection by a giant beast called Criterion, which happens to be a giant bear. And to back this up, there are mutilated bodies of search parties and people that are staying in the area that start appearing. So is it supernatural? Is it something more man-made? Is it just a nature running wild? And I have to say, the film, while I enjoyed it quite a lot actually. It fits right into that late 1970s idea of the eco-terrorism or the eco-horror, like even going back to Jaws in 75. You know, it plays in that. It's just let down by a couple of things. I don't think the ragdoll deaths do it much favour because it takes you out of the realism of it, even though it'll give you a chuckle in modern times. But there are a couple of things that don't really sit right. I think the logging company are playing a bit too vanilla. Either be bad or good, or be something. But we have a character that's heading the logging company that is he's acted really well. This is the problem, but it's hard to know how to define him. And because it's hard to know how to define him, his character goes through throes of emotions, and maybe that was intentional, but when you combine that against the Native American people, they're very steadfastly against it. So much so that's unbelievable. I mean, they come across as very aggressive and overly so for no reason. In some cases, it's a bit over the top. Couple that with the fact that there only really seems to be one person within the entire camp that is, you know, keeping to the Native American ways. And so you have this kind of weird situation where people are desperately fighting and angry and will literally tear up the ground to save something which they don't really exhibit many characteristics of. And it creates this bit of a weird dissonance between what you think the film could be and what it actually is. You've got a disc here from Eureka that has 2 commentaries on it, both pretty good, but the best extra in the disc is actually an interview with one of the guys that suits up in the bear suit, and it turns out there were multiple guys that did it, and how, you know, he went through, you know, theatre school and then mime school to get these kind of parts and became that guy, the kind of Andy Serkis of his day, and how it led him to his own directorial career. And it's really, really interesting and one that I really enjoyed. So Prophecy, you know, maybe not a famed great film, but one that I enjoyed for what it was, especially when you sit back and think in context of the other films that were around that time and how they did these similar kind of themes in the same way. Next up is, well, the best film I've seen all year. It's recently out from BFI, and it is a film by Alim Khan called After Love. Now this is one that seemed to get an awful lot of hype in the cinema when it was out earlier on in the year. It is a 2020 film, and it tells the story of a woman who at the very start of the film loses her husband. He dies peacefully at the start, but he is a man for whom she converted her faith for. So to marry him when they were young, she converted to Muslim and lived a Muslim life all of her days. And he dies, and it's only when he dies and she's gone through his personal effects that she finds some things that don't really fit with the person that she thought he was. In fact, it leads her across the channel to France, where she finds out that he had another life and another family. And while she's dealing with her own grief, she's confronted with the truth of what has happened here. Now, it's not done completely for shocks or for emotive outbursts, because actually Mary, played by Joanna Scanlon, is almost like a ghost herself. It's like she's the person that's dead. She lives in what would be her afterlife, as she doesn't speak. In fact, the only time she speaks is to pray for at the start of the movie. And she is thrust into this situation where she can get to know these people without them knowing who she is. It's an incredibly powerful and beautiful film that really only has three main performances. You have the Mary, played by Joanna Scanlon, like I said. You have the other woman, played by Natalie Richard, and you have a young man who plays a great performance alongside as well. And the three of them make just this beautiful play on screen. It is really affecting. I've watched it a few times. I really loved it. I showed it to the wife, and she was equally as affected by it. There's some lovely imagery and ideas in the filmmaking that really stay and resonate with you. Some of it you're not sure if it's in Mary's head or whether it's actually happening. And the whole thing together is just utterly wonderful. And it's a really good release as well, because you get one of his short films, Alim Khan's short films, called Three Brothers, which is equally effective. It's basically about three brothers are trying to exist with an absentee parent. So how do they feed themselves? How do they look after each other? How do they stay in school? All of those things while the father is away and really does not seem to care. And they want to stay as this close-knit family. It's a brilliant short film, although not very long. And then you have a Q&A with Alim Khan and the two main female actresses, where they explain about the genesis of the story, why it wanted to be told, and their part in playing it. I think it's a great release, and on top of that, the booklet is packed to the rafters, full of things looking and exploring the Muslim faith. You've an introduction by the director, you get a foreword by the producer. It all pulls together to make a great package, and for me, one of the absolute best releases of the year. Well done, BFI. And then last but not least, I'm going to talk about a recommendation from Solitary Ronin, who talked about Christ at Eboli recently. When I say recently, it was probably about 2 months ago. That man's watched a lot of Italian films, and I encourage you to follow along with his journey as he has done recently. But Christ at Eboli tells the story of a man called Carlo Levi, who he's exiled to the southern part of Italy for being anti-establishment or anti-fascist in his viewpoints. He's a writer, speaker, and he's basically against fascism and speaks out, and like an awful lot of other people, sent to Eboli to live out his days. Except all these people that are sent to Eboli aren't allowed to speak to each other, aren't allowed to converse with each other in case they start an uprising. But really, there's nothing in Eboli. It is not a progressive part of society. These people are left to live out their existence in what is a very, very rural life. And Carlo Levi's left to exist with the people. He's left to live there. And it's one of those situations where his life's been taken away from him. And whether that changes him as a person, does he try and build a new life here, even though he's been exiled here? Even though he's not allowed to live his life freely, he's not allowed to go beyond a certain point of the city limits. There is a mayor in charge who seems to be in great control of everything that's going on, but he's a positive influence in that society because he has skills. He has a medical degree that he's never used, for instance, but here is a part of Italy that does not have very much medical care or good medical care available. So while he doesn't want to preach medicine, does he feel compelled to help these people? And does that change his standing within society. And it's a weird one because this film, when I looked up beforehand and tried to see what the plot was in terms of somebody else in case I missed something, it's only 3 lines long on Wikipedia, so there's not an awful lot to it, which when you couple with the fact that the film's just about 4 hours long, you wonder, why would you watch it? And I have to say, the reason you watch it is because it's bloody great. Francesco Rossi's film is a real examination of a way of life as much as this man put in this situation. It's got an amazing centre performance, one of the most captivating people you'll ever see on screen, and one that I can't help but recommend. There is a Criterion release of it. It's a bit too pricey for me at the moment to import from America, but I am keeping an eye out for it because I think this is the type of film that I will want to watch again. If I want to think about change of life and contemplate on how that's changing me as a person, this is a great companion piece to that kind of thought or that kind of life change. So that's my watch list for this week. Again, if you've seen any of the movies, let me know. We can have a discussion about them. Let me know what you've been watching, and I hope you're keeping well. If you made it this far, thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you next time. Speak to you then.